Councillor Drew, would you like to do a C on that? Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, as we gather as a town council in this meeting this night, we are grateful for the opportunity that we have to serve. We pray that Thou would bless us with insight and direction. Help us to be able to understand those things that will be presented, and bless us that we will be able to make decisions on behalf of the town and its citizens. And this we ask and pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Councillor. Well, it's 5 p.m. We have some feedback, yeah. Maybe it's better this way. Yeah. We will call this meeting to order, and we are grateful to have our Temple City Star recorder. Thank you. And Corey McCarthy for Channel 32. Thank you so much for being both there and to do that service for our town. The meeting is called to order. We have an agenda. It will be amended with the delegation on number 4 not being present for this meeting. They just cancelled. So with these changes,
I'd made a request a week or so ago about it, putting something to do with speed zones on this agenda. I don't see it on here. Is that for another time, or?
Jeff, please.
No, I actually sent you some RFP forms to fill out, but then I just forgot about it after I sent you the forms. So you can add it tonight if you'd like.
No, that's okay.
Well,
Well,
Councillor Court, why don't you fill your request for decision, send it to Jeff, and then we'll put it on the next meeting.
He just said you could put it on today if you want to, whatever.
Up to you guys.
Well, I would rather have some background.
Councillor Court, Third Avenue East.
It's to do with the post office street there. That's fine. We'll do it next time.
Okay, thank you. Just send that to Jeff, and so we get the proper background, and
I'll stop in and fill
we'll
it
be
out.
up to speed. All right, so I need approval of the agenda. Thank
I
you.
move to approve the agenda for tonight.
The amended
With the
agenda?
amendments on it.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Adoptions of minutes. You have the minutes of April 9th, 2019. If you would like to make a motion to approve it, I read them. I have not found anything contrary to what we discussed. Councillor Brown?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 9th, 2019.
Thank you. Questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. Bylaws and policies. We have bylaw 1582, utility bylaw. If you remember, Jeff, for those who were there at the last meeting, Jeff talked about the issue of frozen water line in the context of the present bylaws that we have. There are different issues that need to be spoken of regarding that bylaw. For example, whose responsibility is it when a landowner incurs the cost of unfrozen their line by calling an out-of-town or in-town plumber to do the job, but when they were calling the town, they were told, call a plumber, except then we told those same people, we have a way to help you by putting an outside line hooked up on your neighbor, and if you run your tap, it would not be a problem. Some chose not to run the water and then incurred frozen line overland and under the ground. So plumbers were called and great expenses were had. Most of our people that had a problem chose to stay with the overland line and were fine and did not incur a cost. One chose to do the unfreezing of the line at their own cost, and I knew it was their own cost and did not expect the town to reimburse them. So we have different type of issue. So one is who is responsible for the cost, or is that the responsibility of the town? The second one is at which time, at which level in a line is a town responsible when a freezing occurs? There is a key that is going, the water then goes and runs to the main, and from the key to the house. And if it's frozen just about in that area, whose responsibility is it? Is it a shared responsibility, or is it a full responsibility? And then, of course, who pays? So those are elements we need to really consider. For example, another issue is if you run the water, are the town people going to be given some money towards the cost of the water because they were told by the town to run the water, not to have frozen line? I lived in Montreal. I have lived through frozen pipes, and I really realized that in most towns, especially in Quebec, in the wintertime, you are told to run your tap, and if you don't, it's your problem. And if you have frozen line, don't call the town to help you because it won't happen. So I don't really know that different scenario with different town. Southern Alberta does not normally have that problem, but we need to fix our bylaw in order to cover all that. So let's talk about it. Let's talk, first of all, about the responsibility. What is your opinion? And should the bylaw be amended to reflect a responsibility of the town when the line is frozen beyond the key towards the main? Councillor Court?
In my mind, and I don't know about compensating for water, and I don't know how many houses actually froze up. Do we know?
9.
that? 9.
7 houses, 2 businesses.
Okay. If we can, if we know which ones they are, I would rather compensate them for the water use. They were told to run the water, and if they didn't, you know. Now, if they ran the water and they didn't freeze up, if we could figure out a formula to compensate those that ran the water for that extra water, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay. Last meeting, we had Councillor Brown, if you don't mind, Councillor Bengry. Councillor Brown spoke about having been hooked up to service her neighbor, and she said the difference was so minimal that honestly there was nothing to talk about.
It was $20.
$20.
Has there been anybody approached looking for a break on their water?
Jeff?
Actually, we haven't had anyone, and Shem, correct me if I'm wrong, because you take a few more phone calls. We've had people concerned if they're taking from their neighbor, how to properly compensate their neighbor. So we're hearing that, of course, but I haven't had any requests for compensation for the additional water use. Shem, have you heard anything in the office?
Yeah.
1 or 2 questions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been really, really minimal.
I know of one house that still has a frozen pipe, and it's on second on the east side.
Might not be frozen. Like
But by now, you know, they're not
Look for simple.
asking for anything. They are grateful to be hooked up to their neighbors for the water, but it was their fault. They recognized that. They had not let the water run when they went on holiday. Come back, the line is frozen. Yes.
Councillor Court mentioned that we were told to run the water. Was that after the fact or before the fact?
And
Is
that's,
that public knowledge before we have a deep freeze?
okay.
You know, a lot of the younger people don't know that.
Okay, so that's an excellent point, because the advisory was done after we realized that the phone call came and we had some people who had frozen lines, which we did not expect or before that time. Yes, so the call of running the water was done after we were made aware of frozen lines.
Yeah, Shem and I were actually texting back and forth on the Saturday because I was at Zones in Lethbridge and we were getting calls and we said, man, is it time we put something out? Because I think this is number 3 or number 4 within 48 hours. And so that's when we put something out.
So this is,
Yeah.
your question is quite relevant to the case.
You bet.
Is totally relevant because, in particular, the first person that called was told on a Friday, I think, to call a plumber. And, yeah, they followed our advice, except just after they called a plumber and had the plumber the whole day, we were able to send a crew and say, we're going to hook you up. Don't have the water carried on, don't incur any more cost. So that's a problem. But the person chose to incur the cost, so.
I think as long as we do due diligence when that happens and let the community know that they need to run water, if somebody doesn't run their water and has a problem, then it's their problem.
Okay.
I think from a town perspective, we need to make sure that we get that out.
So, moving forward, that is a moving forward kind of thing. Next year, if there is a deep freeze for a long period of time, it'd be best to have an advisory early. So that's one we can deal with. Doesn't fix yet the problem of the bylaw.
I don't know what the problem is with the bylaw. I've been here for 30 years. This is the first time I've ever seen this happen.
Same.
So I'm not sure if we should be it's a one-off thing as far as I can tell.
Okay, so Jeff asked a question. Is a water freeze considered as a water not being provided to the citizen?
Essential.
And is the town exonerated at that point, the same as it is if we have to cut the water?
Question is, what are the costs going to be to the town for these 9 properties?
So I only
Gotta
have
figure it out.
2 people that have brought me invoices. So the total of those 2 would be $4,000 between the 2 of them. One of them's 3,200 and one of them's 800, 750 and change plus GST.
I think if we can speak, I want to speak to not what we need to do, but what we need to do in this moment. So in this moment, I think it is an odd occurrence that it has happened, in my understanding. And I don't think that the town, my own perspective is, I don't feel like the town needs to reimburse the $20 to the households that have been running their water. I don't see that as a major financial burden. But we were told, because, I mean, I was in on this, it was my neighbor, one of the ones that this was happening to, so I was
That they would be
firsthand.
reimbursed.
Well, I don't know if she would be, if she's one of them, but my question is, we were told at that moment, call a plumber or hook us up. We were hooked up, which was fantastic. She had the water. She then decided on her own to get a plumber. She went ahead, and with their new machine, they could tell how many feet out it was. And when it was, I believe, 75 feet out, then when she talked to the town, they said, oh, well, at 75 feet, you're now under in the town's realm of things. So maybe
Beyond
it
the
is.
key.
Exactly. So maybe it is. So in those circumstances, I think, well, then we should be paying for them because the way things are written. If it's in the town property, if it's in my house, okay, that's on me. But if it's in that area, I don't know. That's my personal opinion.
This is where the difficulty is.
I agree.
Because if it freezes upward from the key,
Right.
it's going to freeze downward from the key and freeze the whole line. So who is the culprit? Councillor?
I think administration had what I thought was a good solution to this. If they're told to call a plumber, then it should be understood amongst the plumbing community that if you get past a certain point, then you need to contact us as well, so that we're part of the solution. And it can't just be, well, send the bills to the town. It's got to be with the understanding that the town has knowledge of it and has been on site as well.
Okay,
But the problem with that, though, is at that moment,
Yeah.
the town didn't have any way of helping. So I think going forward, yes.
yeah.
They,
It's
then they
easier to
could
go
step in and
forward
help.
right now with all what we know.
Yeah, I think too with that though, Councillor Brown, it doesn't even mean that we have to be the one to finish it up. So my thought was, Paula Brown's house freezes up, you call a plumber,
Right.
he's thawing for a while, hits the curb stop, which is now town responsibility from then on, phones the town, hey guys, I've hit the curb stop, things are still frozen. We show up and say, hey, you're only 10 feet from the main, go ahead and finish it. And then we'll pay you that portion. You bill us that portion, bill
Agreed.
them that portion.
I agree.
Or we might say, hey, you got 100 feet to go, we'll take it from here. So we don't want to pay your rate for it.
Right. Absolutely.
And so we'll take it from here. Like, we have some option. I wanted to mention, because I told you something 2 weeks ago that isn't true anymore. The City of Calgary greatly overhauled their website when it came to frozen lines.
Exactly.
So before this year, when all this was happening, it just said phone a plumber. They still aren't paying any of the cost, but I liked what they did. They put on their website and said, if you believe you have a frozen line, phone the town and let us know so that we can commence some investigation, and they're aware of it. They just wanted to be aware, because if it went long term, they wanted to be able to take you water. So that was their intent. And then they kind of had a registry of who the problem properties were. They had 300 that they've logged so far this winter in the City of Calgary. The other reason you would do it, and this is what Claire's Home does, is because I talked to Marion about this, they have about 20 properties that they know are susceptible to freezing.
Right, and so we know we have 9 for sure.
And so they contact those properties every year and say, if we have a deep freeze, it's your responsibility, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Just to kind of absolve them manually. But when I was, to Councillor Selk's point, I've talked to Bart about this, and we want to help, but we don't want to be paying $350 an hour where we don't have to.
Exactly.
And so if we can take it from a point, or if it just makes sense to leave them engaged in cleaning it and send us that portion of the bill, we can probably live with that too.
Okay. So meanwhile, Jeff has 2 bills. One, we know the work was started before the overline line was an option.
It was too cold. It was way too cold at that point.
And we couldn't do it. So that person called a plumber and sent us a bill, and that's a very large bill. And the line was not unthought.
Yeah, the plumber
By
didn't
the
get
way.
the job done, by the way.
And that was an out-of-town plumber,
Yes.
too, wasn't from in
It
town.
was. That's
But
right.
That's where the cost got racked
But
up.
nobody in town at that point had equipment to deal with it. No plumbers did.
Okay.
And so to be fair to the person, there wasn't anyone locally that could help them.
So that portion of the bill definitely is an issue, because we told a person on the phone, call a plumber. That person did as we said. Yes,
We could go around and around and around for the next 2 hours.
absolutely right.
On who's going to incur the costs.
But right now, for that person, it's
We need
important.
to know, these 9 properties, are they older properties
Not
that don't come
especially.
under the current code?
No, not
of
especially,
bearing how deep?
no.
No, there's a bit of a mixed bag. I would say if we're talking 9 or 10, I would say 6 of them are probably older homes, single person living in the home. Again, very low water usage. The one like the mayor mentioned, they were gone for a month
Yeah,
or more. They were gone for 2 months and came home and their water was frozen. They're not looking to us for anything. They get it. I really only have one property looking to us to pay. The other one brought the bill in because their plumber told them to. But she wasn't really pushing hard on, you need to pay this. She just said, I was told to bring it in, so here it is.
so the other one, to my point of view, this is a problem. The person followed to a T what we asked her to do.
Exactly.
But the intent of us telling them to call a plumber was we couldn't help them.
And it's exactly right. So they look for help
Yeah.
from another source, which makes sense, right? And then when we offered the line and hook that person with the landline, that person still decided then to call a local plumber and have the job finished. So that, to me, should not really be our responsibility, because there was a possibility of giving water. The water was available, but that person chose to let that line freeze and call a plumber to finish a job on their own line. Fair enough. Why people do what they do is not the issue here. But what the issue is, that first bill, is that something that we should look at in order to compensate that person?
Going forward.
Yeah, but you
No,
haven't answered
just
my
hear me out.
question.
I don't think that, now these plumbers have got the equipment that they can
Yes.
thaw, they didn't have them before. Well, I happen to know that Baker Plumbing does, because he's worked on my lines several times, and he's
Or
always
whatever.
been able to thaw everything out for me, but I don't know whether he ever got called. But anyways, to call an out-of-town plumber, that's a serious thing. And I think going forward, we have to say in that bylaw, they have to use a local plumber, because they brought in 2 plumbers, they accomplished nothing, and have got a $3,200 bill. Right? They were told to go and get a plumber, but they weren't given direction to use a local, probably, just get a plumber. So they
Because we
got
knew that
somebody-
nobody had the equipment.
Exactly, and they didn't either, obviously.
They had the equipment,
They didn't
but
get
they
it
could not
unthawed,
go.
right?
They could not go far enough.
Yeah.
After
So,
one day's work.
I think going forward, that they have to use a local person, or contact the town and get some advice before they call.
Well, they did.
Do we care who they use if they know they're paying their portion of the bill? Do we care?
Well, I suppose,
No.
they want to pay a big hefty bill,
Yeah.
right? But $3,200, I don't know if we're responsible for that.
Let me throw another rock into the water. Whenever you freeze lines, especially copper lines, you might
Burst them?
Burst them too.
burst a line, crack a line, or whatever.
Yeah.
We don't know of those 9 lines until we get a sinkhole or water rising. What's going to happen in that case? The town is going to incur the cost.
Why?
Well, if it's from the shut off to the house, we
No,
aren't.
no, you're not. It's only if it goes from
Down
the
on the street.
key to
curb
the,
Yeah,
from
main
the
curb
curb stop
stop.
to the main.
Curb stop.
Because that's very clearly in the bylaw, that is undisputable.
Yeah.
That is not where the dispute is. The dispute is what happened in that very odd incident, and that is one odd incident.
Really odd.
So far, we haven't heard of any.
It was a
broken service
Friday.
lines.
That person is all alone in their house
Yeah,
and
thanks,
wants
Councillor.
water, right? And we did not offer to bring water to that house, actually, neither.
So is this resident that has the 3,000
Mm-hmm.
plus bill, they are requesting full payment
Correct.
from the town of Cardston because they are stipulating that we told them to go get a plumber because we could not help them?
It hasn't necessarily been their argument. Their argument's been is that was my cost to get water, and you're obligated to provide me water.
Yeah, I'm a taxpayer and I deserve that service.
And I've talked to them and said, well, actually, there is a clause under the bylaw that we don't guarantee uninterrupted water.
Correct.
Oh, of course, it's 99% of the time you're fine, right?
Yep.
But there are times where you don't. So, yeah, it's a bit of a myriad of reasons, but that's one of them, that I'm owed water. It's an obligation.
So can we keep our bylaw the way it is and write a policy as far as direction for administration to deal with this? So
Case
that,
by case.
Yeah.
I mean, when's the last time this happened?
35 years ago,
So
someone told
if
me
we had a
35
policy in
years
place
ago.
that states,
Yeah.
when you have frozen lines, this is the town's position, this is what we will do. You give them a call, you tell them this is how it's going to work, and they
Yeah.
I don't know, that's just.
I agree with Councillor Gerry 100%. I feel like this is a case by case.
It
Yeah.
is,
You have to
and
look
it's
at
so
every
rare.
single case and you have to assess it and say, this one is just cause for us to foot the bill, and this one is not reasonable. They did not have to incur this debt.
Yeah.
Okay, so in this particular case of that bill, do you feel it's up to administration to deal with this one?
Yes.
Thanks.
kind of passing the buck.
Yeah.
Well,
Come on, I put it on the agenda. Don't leave me hanging.
I'm bringing you there for you to make a decision, but you don't seem to want to make one.
I feel in this case, I feel that they're probably justified in asking to be reimbursed. If, it's not gonna happen again, and we're probably gonna have to give them some advice that in the future, this is not gonna happen. But I think because they, in good faith, felt that that's what they had to do, they had no other option, I think we're obligated to pay it. That's my feeling.
I just wonder, just a question about what was said to this individual. Did we tell them, we can't help you, so
Yes.
get a plumber and we will pay
That's
for
what
that
was
portion?
said.
Or is that?
No, it was just when people started calling, we said, we don't have the ability to help you. So your option is to find a plumber. And we knew by that time that even the Lethbridge plumbers were overwhelmed, but we said, it's your only option.
Yeah.
We can't do anything. It was, at that point, it was still getting 15, 16 below at night. So the next week it warmed up, and that's when we started hooking up everybody overland. And the interesting thing with this individual is they called the plumber back after we hooked her up overland.
Yeah, but this is what I mean. At that
So
point.
that's part of the bill?
50% of the bill
Yeah,
is
don't think-
but
post
at that
overland.
point,
That's
that
kinda
portion
where
should not be
yeah.
paid. That's what I
Yeah.
said earlier. That portion, in my opinion, should not be paid because
Yeah,
there was an
no,
option given.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
No, they
no,
shouldn't, we
no.
shouldn't have to pay that part.
No,
Yeah, she said, no, I wanted it done, and so I called him in. I said, but we had given you an option. You had water. She said, well, I didn't want to do it
I had to pay
that way.
previous
Yeah.
to that time, then after
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
got hooked up, we don't pay
To
that
me,
portion.
it's the previous, it's
No,
not the
no way.
after.
Okay,
That's
I'll look
asking
at
too
that.
much.
So are we there comfortable to have a motion made for administration to deal with that particular bill before the overland line was
Yep.
installed?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm waiting.
And why do we have a clause in there if we say we can't provide the water to a certain time?
Yeah, so you do have an indemnity clause. You don't guarantee uninterrupted service. You do have that. You could
The-
lean on that.
The only thing it doesn't say, it doesn't talk about frozen lines. It just
Right,
say.
it doesn't.
It does, the only thing it doesn't say is that it's a particular issue. That no water seems to be encompassing a general area. It doesn't speak about one individual. No, it doesn't. And that's maybe something we could fix in that bylaw to include frozen line. And
Section 2F.
yeah, I really feel that it would be well advised, if we want to be totally exonerated, which we should be, is to add that with provision that an advisory will be put in place early enough.
One other thing, and I just want to be clear on this one. If the town requests that residents run water,
Yes.
are we comfortable that we give a credit at the end of that time to run it? And I'm not suggesting we should, because it's a far sight cheaper than a plumber. But the bylaw right now says we will not amend utility bills for interruption of service. So it specifically
Okay.
says that. So I just want to be clear on that, that if we put out a notice saying we're asking everyone to run a pencil stream water until further notice, which in this case was exactly 1 month. In the next month, do we put a, 15,000 liter credit on everybody's bill or something?
So
Those
pencil
kind of
stream water
ideas.
is what, $4?
Pardon me, Councillor? Sorry.
Pencil stream water is how much?
$20, about $20
About-
for one person using
Yeah,
it.
it's probably.
$20?
Yes, that's
we-
what
I
it costs.
can't even see it being that.
We had Jill track it at her house because she ran it for the month because she's got an older home and she's the only one in it. She figured it was about $15.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's not a big deal.
So
At least they have water.
my opinion on this one, because I lived in other town where stuff like that happens, is we don't credit anything, but we use the advisory for all, which allow them not to run into $300, $400, $500 costs in unsawing their lines.
Yeah, just for perspective too, $15 a household is roughly $17,000 a month. We'd be crediting back, right? It's considerable.
To my point of view, that is not necessary. The overline issue should be dealt between neighbors. We have 9 people that benefited from that. Maybe a little visit from our public works
Which they
to
don't.
that.
Yeah, I think
Try
most
to
have,
to
yeah.
see
Yeah.
if they could settle that by looking at the bill from 1 month to the other and just go to the neighbor and say, well, this is what it is.
In the absence of anything along that in the bylaw for frozen lines, there was some discussion around about, no one's asking for a credit on their water bill that we're hearing, but there was some discussion, inquiries, was the town going to look at it? And we said, oh, we're going to talk about it, we'll look at it, we'll try and make that right. Do we look at something for this year that's a little smaller? We do, $10 or something a bill.
Well, if we
and then go
promise, then
forward?
let's deliver. But in the future,
We promised. I need to
Okay.
talk to the staff a little bit
okay.
more about
Well,
any
if it's a
conversation.
promise, we need to deliver.
Okay.
But in moving forward, I would say, let's make it sufficiently clear in that bylaw that it is not the position of the town to reimburse people who use water for a preventative measure.
It's an extraordinary
Because it's
measure.
definitely cheaper
Yeah.
Oh,
than
yeah.
having to unthaw
Yeah.
your line.
100
So
times,
spend
yeah.
$20, $30 if you have to, rather than $500 and $600 if your line is so frozen. So
Okay.
we still need that motion to fix that extraordinary circumstance.
I'll make that motion. You can word it.
So I guess is the intent, we'd pay the
We pay
portion
the-
incurred prior to hooking up with overland water?
Right.
Yes.
The portion to unthaw the line,
Yeah.
if the bill has more than that,
Still some discrepancy around that on the bill, which I'm dealing with, but.
yeah, if
Yeah.
there is more than that on that bill, we deal with the unthawing of the line until we put the advisory and offered
Yep.
the
And I guess that could
overland
be part of
line.
that motion, is that in the future, we have an advisory prior to an event to let them know.
Well,
and
it's
that
going to
they
be
will not
inside
be
there.
reimbursed, but it will save them money in the long run,
It would be in the bylaw.
in that bylaw.
Yeah.
So if you
that's
do
my
this motion, which would be great, if you do another motion to direct administration to amend the bylaw
Yeah.
to deal with frozen water lines,
Okay,
just
so
something simple like
let's
that.
deal with that extraordinary issue, first of all. Questions? All in favor? Okay, let's put this one to rest. Second one, let's deal with the amendment of the bylaw.
I just,
Yeah, Councillor Martin.
Councillor Drew?
oh, okay, sorry. I'd just like to make a motion for administration to amend the bylaw,
To deal with
deal with.
frozen water line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with it, yeah.
yeah.
Case by case.
All in favor? Thank you. It
Thank
took
you.
a little bit of,
This, I'm sure.
Hopefully, it won't be for 30 years.
it's a frustrating thing, but we need to look at it. The next one, Jeff,
You'll be the mayor then,
do you
Paula.
want to present it, or do you want me to go ahead with it?
If I
It's
can
a
see,
Chinook-
if I can see what it is, I'm happy
It's
to
a
answer.
Chinook
yes, sure.
Regional.
Intermunicipal Subdivision Appeal Board.
So I can introduce that.
Thank you.
Old Man River Planning Commission is looking to create a regional subdivision appeal board.
Boy.
So this is a appeal board for people who wish to appeal a decision of the MPC. It's a slightly on top point topic right now because we may have one. We do not get a lot of appeals, thankfully. We're a fortunate community that way, that we have very few, but that also creates a problem where we technically have a local appeal board, but I guarantee if you called them, they're not aware they're on the local appeal board. It's been so many years since they've had an appeal that they're not currently probably trained. They are unaware that they're even on it. I know two of them now. One's moved and one lives away seasonally. So as long as it appeals not in the winter, he can be there. And so it's just so infrequent that administratively we are recommending that we look at belonging to the regional appeal board. There's a couple other reasons why in a small community there's a benefit. The appeal board won't be people from here. Correct. So if there's a local appeal, chances are it's people that don't know you or me, go to church with you or me, see us in the grocery store, anything. And they just look at the issue based on its merits.
Councillor Bengry?
On that situation, Jeff, if we join this, it costs us $500 a year.
Correct. Plus
But what
costs
does
of
But
appeal.
what does it cost the
An appeal.
individual to appeal?
It's $200.
About $200
regional.
up to
Well,
now.
No.
Maybe,
Isn't it?
because those bylaws still, how it works in the bylaw, which is a bit interesting, is it says that the town will enter into an intermunicipal agreement or into an agreement with ORSC for what the reimbursement will be for members
I
and what the
get you.
cost will be for appellants.
I get you.
So that's to be determined still.
So we do not know, we know what it is now, we don't know what it will be then.
But I think the reason is they want you to have discretion.
Yeah, I
I
know.
think that's part of the reason, is they're not going to find consensus among 20-some communities as to exactly what the appeal fee should be, because I'll bet right now you're within a few 100% of each other. I'll bet you span hundreds of dollars between what each other are charging now. And so I
Right.
think they're trying to keep a little bit of the discretion local. So if you want it to maintain at 200, you probably can.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
should.
assessment review board.
I like this idea because what Jeff is saying, if you've got people that are supposedly on that committee that have moved away and they don't even remember that they're on that, and then you call them and they're on a holiday somewhere and think, oh, geez, I can't even make it. You can't even get them there. But when you have Chinook, or ORSC, ORSC is a very responsible organization. I've been a part of that organization. Councillor Bengry is now. They're very thorough and they're very fair. And
part of it, too.
I would recommend that we go with it. I like it. And
Okay, so,
Go ahead, I'm not quite finished yet. The fact
No,
is that an
I was
appeal
just
is
wondering.
the $200. It's a fair price, and I don't think they're gonna be much more than that. And we express that to them, I guess maybe it'll work, I don't know. But
Okay.
I like the idea of having them.
what I especially like is that they offer training,
Yes,
and that no member can sit on that board without having received thorough training.
absolutely.
And that, to me, is very valuable, because if you go to a board and sit on a board and don't have your memory refreshed as to how to deal with the situation, you're not very impartial.
No, that's right.
Councillor Bengry.
Members of that board are going to have to be very, very astute on their land use bylaws. And that
Well,
is a
that's the
big
case.
part of
The
the
big
MGA.
thing, you bet.
Part of that too,
Absolutely.
there's a couple of things, there's still obligations of the town here. We do not have to have trained members to participate in this. We would simply take members from other communities, but they would like us to.
Yes.
But they
have
should be
members trained
trained.
to be pulled for other things, which I think is fair. So we can put out to the community if there's volunteers. The second thing is, and Jill is actually already trained in this, we provide a clerk. So
Yes.
to your point, Councillor Bengry, that clerk is responsible to get the board up to speed when there's an appeal.
Okay, so Jeff, in that bylaw, it was not clear to me as to which municipality will provide the clerk.
Right. I believe the
It
clerk
doesn't
is from
say-
the,
Comes from
where the appeal is coming
Coming from.
All right, so it was not clear enough. Maybe they could clarify that at that.
That's how I understood it, because they have the context.
Okay, so it was, when I read it, I was thinking, okay, wait a minute, I don't want anybody from the municipality where the appeal process is initiated. So I was thinking, okay, who is the clerk then? So maybe if they could just add that.
So what it says is, council shall by resolution appoint a clerk as a designated officer, which will amend. The appointed clerk shall attend all meetings and hearings of the Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision Appeal Board in the member municipality,
Oh.
but shall not vote on any matter before the board.
In a member,
So if Jill, for example, if there was an appeal here, she would be the clerk for this one.
so that's the way you read it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So if you read it this way, I'm fair. I'm satisfied that that is the way.
So,
Yeah, I was not sure of how to read that one. Councillor Barnes?
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, that they're wanting a large pool of members that they can draw from,
correct.
who are trained. So if there was an appeal here, they would draw on members from outside of the area. They wouldn't ask the people
No,
from here.
no.
Correct.
But we would have a clerk from here.
because-
And that clerk doesn't have a vote.
Nope.
They're just taking notes.
Well, and they're
Right.
there to provide
Right.
all the context.
Provide the
Because they
context.
work
And,
Exactly.
and contact the
And I like
people,
that.
contact the people, give them the place where it
Yep.
is, the protocol that will be followed,
I
etc.
really like that idea.
Yeah, Councillor Selk.
I'd like to move first reading of draft bylaw 1682 Chinook Intermunicipal Subdivision and Development Appeal Board.
Okay, so is that what they were desiring, that we do the first?
Yep.
Thank you. So, further question? All in favor? Thank you, I think it's a good move. Thank you very much, Councillor. Okay, bylaw 1679B, we already have done 2 reading, is the animal bylaw amendment. The only thing that we need to do, if you remember, the amendment had to do with the fees. No, chickens, yes, sorry. It had to do with allowing chickens in a organization like Lee Crest.
Tiger's using a code word for chicken.
KFC is the code word.
Public and institutional zones.
All right. We just need to have that motion. There's no discussion needed, we already discussed.
Have a recorded vote on the motion too, please. Third reading.
Sure, absolutely. Okay. We have asked for a recorded vote. So this one has to do with the chicken. We have given them all the context and all the warnings possible for them to look with AHS and to follow their protocol properly. We only enable the process.
I will make that motion.
Thank you.
Bylaw 1679B to allow properties zoned under land use bylaw, public institutional to be allowed to for therapeutic use of animals for patients.
Okay, so it's no difference in what's happening in,
Did you say you're moving third reading, Councillor?
Yeah.
If not, please say that.
Third reading.
I move third read.
Yeah, you did.
yeah. So, any further discussion? Councillor Bengry, I appreciate your position. You made it fairly clear that you have extreme concern regarding the safety, regarding the...
When we spend a month, Mayor, on chickens, and we do a bylaw on it, and all of a sudden, we're amending a bylaw, I have real problems with that.
Yeah, the use is not the same, though. Okay.
Regardless.
It's fine. Councillor, this is what democracy is all about. Are in favor? Thank you. Against? Okay. All right. Thank you. There is no problem with that. That's the way democracy works. And at this point, we still do not know where it's going.
Okay.
60, donation request. Cardston High School Hope Squad has requested $200. I will tell you, last year they were very late and I needed a little bit, and I helped. So this year they have come to the town and see if we were willing to help them with purchases of T-shirts. That squad is essentially a group of young people who are trained to deal with all the vulnerable children in their midst in a courtyard and help them towards prevention of suicide.
I don't have a problem with this, but a week or two ago when I was out doing my walk, they were having a Hope Squad big thing going on in town.
Yeah.
Are they just a little bit late in requesting this? Is that what you said? Or is this for something else?
No,
They're
that
looking
is
for
for
shirts.
something coming up.
You saw the junior high. This is the high school.
Okay, I saw Kara wandering around with
Okay,
them.
maybe not, but I know that's upcoming still. Sorry.
She mentions it in her asking. Anyways,
I mean, the purpose behind it I have no problem with.
May 27th to May 31st.
So there's something else going on, okay.
Yeah. So here is the conversation that Jeff had with Kara. The town would be okay to do $200, and I said, when she talked to me, I said, well, go see Jeff because that's something he can approve. When I had the conversation with Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, she said, well, that really was the minimum threshold.
Yeah, that's kind of the floor, not the ceiling, but they don't want to be burdened.
So, because Jeff has ability to donate up to $200, but not above, this comes to council to see, are you interested to help them with a little bit more?
How many shirts are they talking here?
Oh, I have quite a few kids involved, my.
She just said they'll get whatever they can. So whatever they can raise, that's as much stuff as they'll get.
It's about $15 a shirt printed.
It is.
Yes.
Should be 8.
I think, and maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I think if we get beyond the $200 threshold, then we're starting to look at the joint donation thing that we have with the county.
Correct.
Well, may have. I don't
May
think it's
have.
a done deal, but yeah, that falls into that area.
Have they hit up the county?
Theoretically,
Yeah.
we may have a joint donation policy forthcoming.
Yes.
So that is a valid question. Have they asked the county as well as us? We don't know that.
Okay, at this time, let's not pass too much time on that. Do you want the town to deal with it with a 200 and let it at that? That's where we go? Okay,
Now, Mayor, we're dealing with suicide
Yes.
as concerned bullying and so forth.
yes, correct.
Does the school division have a bullying policy in
Yes.
place
do. Yes.
where they deal with it?
Yes.
This
Then
is a
why
Hope
are they-
Squad.
Why does this not come under that policy?
It does. I can speak to this. It does. They have a huge, and you probably could speak better to this. They have a huge, that's how this Hope Squad came about.
Yeah,
was
that
because
is a
Westwind
program
School
that
Division-
has been developed.
Right. Westwind School Division came up with this idea of supporting these kids, and so they're just asking for extra funding because throughout the whole year, this Hope Squad has been working, and they're wrapping things up, and anyway, that's,
And if I understand it, talking to Gerry Salmon from down there, that they're designating certain people that kids can feel comfortable going to see. I think this is where Jeremy.
Those kids are
previous
trained and,
This is where Jeremy and the Epic and all that stuff comes in.
yeah, yeah.
But having said that, I wish they would ask what they really want, not hope that we
Okay.
give them more.
All right, you know something? Let's leave it at that. Here is a challenge I give you. If you feel like providing a little bit more, you can do it. Okay? So, Jeff, $200 is what was in your budget. Thank you. All right. 7A, Code of Conduct Compliance. The approval of report. We need a motion to approve this item.
I make a
Councillor
motion
Selk?
to approve the quarterly compliance report for the town of Cardston.
Thank you. And that has to do with the way we deal with providing information to the customer who want to use electricity. So we'll give them all the different choices there is. All in favor? Thank you very much. Funding allocation, now that's an interesting one, the Chamber of Commerce. Let me help you understand that story. Every year we have in our budget an amount of $3,000 that is allocated for different initiatives of the Chamber of Commerce. We keep the funds and we disperse the funds. So here is what I think would be a wise use. Instead of having it come to the council and say, well, can we spend this, can we spend that? The Chamber of Commerce could go to Jeff and say, we are looking out of this $3,000 for so much money, like the $1,500 they're requesting, and Jeff could simply, in his report, monthly report, let us know what the use was. So it doesn't really come to be more than an administration issue.
If I recall, a couple of years ago, I'm not sure, I think it was the last council, gave the discretionary thing to Jeff that he could go up to $20,000 if he needed to.
Yeah, but it's not exactly that
I know, I'm
item.
just saying.
5, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. I thought I was at the higher number.
There's some discretion on taking from reserves without a motion of council.
Okay,
It's not to
yeah,
spend
that's what I
money.
thought.
Different.
And so if we're talking $1,500 and you think it's worthy, then I think that he should do that. I don't think it has to come back to council all the time. for
No,
every
but
little thing, right?
I feel it would be appropriate to have it in a report.
Well, it'd be in the report, yeah, but I think you can.
The same way as we
did it.
see
If he
all
feels
the way
it's right.
money is dispersed every month
Yeah,
through our
that's
financial
what we
right.
give him that.
Yeah, it just was
discretionary
unique because
authority.
you approved it in the budget, and I thought,
Yeah.
Do they want to know if I'm for what it's going for, or do they care? And so I'll bring it and we'll have that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, we do care.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Okay.
To make a motion?
Yeah,
Okay,
you're doing a fine job.
All right.
Councillor Drew?
So can I just make a motion that,
Direction given.
Well, you don't need to do anything.
No.
You just want me to.
oh, okay.
Okay, so you don't want a motion? So you're going to deal with it, and we're happy, and the only thing is report to us in your meeting, in your committee report. All right, so 7th is an
Perfect.
interesting one. Public Works Week declaration is an interesting one, is in May. And the reason is to allow citizens of our town to become a little bit more familiar with what the work of the Public Works staff is doing in town. They see them about and around, but honestly, they really don't know what's going on in any of those big kind of, the treatment plant, the sewer plant. They have no idea what's going on down there.
You know,
Yes.
it's really odd, because every spring, I hear all kinds of people saying how much they appreciate Don Weston for street cleaning and everything like that. But I hardly ever hear anybody saying, I really appreciate the good water that we get, or that we can flush our toilets or anything. And I think that's a good thing that we acknowledge that those people are up there. We got an award
Yeah.
with Curtis, got that wonderful award for his great work. And so I think that it's important
All
that they
right.
are recognized, absolutely.
Councillor, do you want to make that declaration of support?
I absolutely would
Sorry.
like to make that declaration.
Were
of
you
support.
there, Councillor? I'm so sorry.
It's all good.
Mayor, can I speak to that real quick? This is a bit of a weird declaration because the.
Yeah, I
the
can
one
see
from the
that.
mayor, But
Why were you there?
she can't make a motion at a council meeting?
Yeah, I'll make it for her.
Well, so I put in the background, or if you just make the motion to declare it as Public Work Weeks and to submit the declaration from the mayor, then we'll
Yeah.
have her fill out the way too long declaration they've
Yeah.
written, by the way, and submit that with her name on it.
Thank you, that's part of my motion, but Paula has something to say.
No.
No, she was gonna make the motion.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay, you want to go ahead, do it?
Oh, please, go.
Okay, I make that motion as per the
Oh, no, wait, hold on.
declaration
Public
here.
Works Night, the 25th.
For the Public Works Week, National Public Works Week here.
moved by, to declare May 19th to 25th as
Yep.
Public Works Week and to submit the declaration
Yep.
from the mayor as presented.
Yep.
That's the way it should read.
That's what I said.
Perfect. All in favor? Thank you. Let's move along.
We've got a question over here from,
No, it's not a question. I would-
Okay.
I would move that we send the attached letter to the Premier congratulating him on his,
So it's under 70.
yes. It says they need a resolution for each letter. So I'll make a resolution, we send one to the Premier.
Thank you.
I'll make a recommendation.
Okay, should we vote? All in favor? Thank you. All right. Councillor Brown.
I would make a motion that we send the letter to Joseph Scow, as written.
MLA Joseph
Yeah,
Scow. Yeah.
Joseph Scow, MLA, for our area, as a
Okay.
congratulations letter.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Third one?
And I make a motion that we send a letter to Mr. Hunter, thanking him for the time he spent as our MLA and congratulating him on his recent victory.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. 7E is no longer on the agenda. Committee reports. You will see that Jeff report is missing. Jeff has been,
CEO report, then report donations in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah. So
multitasking?
Jeff has been a little bit overwhelmed lately, and so we shall give him a little bit more time to provide us with this.
I'll get it to you.
As to the other report, I have kind of asked Councillor Selk to help me understand a little bit something about EMS and to help me understand about the waste authority. So we are fairly good there, so I don't really think there's a problem for me. The golf hiring, I really would like Jeff to help me a little bit with that committee report. There is something that I find in that report that from the Gulf, appreciate all the work they do and all the good feedback they're offering. But I'm just wondering if there is a strong, solid understanding of what that committee can do and where the cross paths with administration at the town office and the staff that is allocated to the golf course. And I really think maybe we need to kind of look at it properly, make sure that we, as a council, appreciate the distinction there, because I'm afraid that we go into gray area that are going to cause us trouble if we move forward.
Mayor, with that discussion, should we not review the parameters of all the committees we got, who they report to, and so forth and so on? Because there's a lot of stuff coming back to you, directly back to you, and saying, hey, how do you feel about this, or so forth. I think that all of our committees need to be reviewed, and what their governance model is, and so forth.
Okay, but let's stick to this one. Jeff, do you want maybe to address the concerns that we spoke about?
So they're in your committee reports, and I know there's literally 73 pages in here. But there's a letter from the Golf Course Committee, and I wasn't sure if I put it under business, correspondence. I put it in the committee reports, and we have two councillors on that committee here. First of all, we have an ambitious golf committee. They are excited.
Full of fire, and I appreciate that.
They're excited, and it's good. There's a couple things I just wanted maybe a little feedback on in the letter they sent. So they were asking for a number of things. They wanted the hiring of 2 or 3 additional grounds crew for the first couple of months. We're going to try and hedge that a bit by some of our high school students who don't start until July. We're going to start bringing them in a little bit on weekends and after school for a couple hours. Miles wants to get ahead of some of those items that, it's just some of the smaller things tied up. In fact, you'll see if you go out there now, Stan and some helpers went out and redid all the landscape ties around the entrance sign last week. So we got him a small budget, went down, bought supplies, they painted it up, they replaced all the rotted ones. It looks good. They did a good job. So we're going to try and do a lot more of those small projects. And when we can get volunteers like he did, that was great too. But we are going to try and bring in, we're already quite a bit over where we wanted to be on grounds labor budget. So we're just going to see if we can get those kids a few more hours on the weekends and see how that goes. So I think that was fair. The second one is they had a request for some other pieces of equipment. We had those in your mill rate budget last week.
Yeah.
So those are in there. They had some small equipment they needed, like a chainsaw. That's all done. We've got that already. The other one was looking a little closer at this whole 16 and the clubhouse. I always get a little bit concerned about creating an ad hoc committee off a committee. I have councillors on ad hoc committees from committees, and you know what I'm talking about. In fact, the same 2 councillors are on ad hoc of committees. So we need to have some discussion about whether we simply try and work with this group month to month to move that along, or what I know Les Ferber's coming to town soon, and many of the group are golfing with him. I don't know when that's coming up, but I know it's happening. I was told a date, and Ryan and Melvin and Ken are all going to go out and golf with them and talk about stuff. So that's great. Get that moving along. The other one, though, so they asked for any hiring of staffing, that the list of candidates be provided to the advisory committee, and I'm going to push back on that. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. One is I'm always cautious to expose candidates to a larger amount of people than needs be. What if these people have current jobs, they're just testing the waters, or they're dissatisfied and an employer finds out? And there's a few issues with that. Yeah. That exposing that to more people than needed. And secondly is I'm dragging 2 councillors into hiring by default. I'm saying, hey, councillors, I want you now to participate in hiring of seasonal staff, which we've kind of drawn a line in the sand on that one previously. So I'm a little cautious about that. I get where they're coming from, but at the same time, I'm relatively comfortable, not supremely comfortable, but I'm relatively comfortable that we're hiring the best candidates out of the pool of applicants.
But I think I think I can speak for Councillor Selk and myself who were sitting on that board. When it was brought up, it was just one individual that was irritated that he wasn't
Okay.
consulted.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't a unanimous.
Okay.
It wasn't ever unanimous
Okay.
around the table that we all needed to know
Okay.
who you're hiring. I think it was, and I think Alex handled it beautifully when he said, well, actually, we hired the best of the best. The best names that were brought forward is who
Yeah.
we hired, and that's what you need to know.
Yeah.
And I felt like around the table, everyone supported that. So I don't
Okay.
feel like that was a big issue. It was one individual, he was irritated, and the rest.
And I know who
supported
that
it.
would be, and I get it.
Yeah, except the way it's written, I did not read that
course.
because I didn't have that background, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Selk.
In our next golf committee advisory meeting, we'll just take care of that.
Okay.
It'll be
Yeah.
a simple no, that's not
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, and you can
Yeah.
blame me. You can just say Jeff gave it a hard pass.
It was already.
No,
It's
we,
pretty simple, it's in my mind, Mayor,
it's
it's
a
pretty simple.
governance
It's-
issue.
Yeah, plus, we don't allow that in any other
Yeah.
committee,
Yeah.
so why would we start?
And we do not do that at this table either. We allow administration to do their job.
Exactly.
So that was a little fine line that I felt was maybe a little getting murky here.
So I hope the Golf Advisory Board feels like they're supported. I think they do. I think they feel like council supports the committee and supports the golf course. I think some days Alex is trying to keep up with some of the board members. Like, oh, we're opening on Friday? Okay. And we're having a work group? Great, let's do it.
No, I
So
think,
we'll get some of that sorted out, right? We're going to get all that sorted, and it's good. Like, we opened when we should have, and we've had a lot of volunteer help already, and that's been excellent. we
and
want
I
that to
very much
continue.
appreciate that, and thank you, councillors, for giving your all to that committee. It's going to help us move forward. Councillor Brown?
I think the most important idea that the golf course ad hoc committee wanted brought forward is the appreciation. They have massive appreciation to
Good.
this council and for their support, and they're truly excited to be working with us, and they're very happy with the progression and the way things are going. So they are,
Good.
and they wanted that to be known straight across. And also, it is a fantastic committee full of doers,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
really great
Yeah.
because whenever they've had a, hey, should we, everyone shows up. And so
Yeah.
that doesn't always happen.
Well, you can pass on to them
We will.
our appreciation for their hard work because they know how to mobilize people.
Yeah.
Maybe if I can just answer Jeff's question about an ad hoc of an ad hoc.
Yeah, that surprised me a little bit too.
I think what they're looking for, Jeff, is they want to reach out to a couple more citizens in town
Okay.
that would be movers in terms of helping us
Okay.
raise funds for a clubhouse.
Okay.
Could it just then be an amendment to your present terms of reference
Yep.
and add
Yep.
2 members at large?
It might allow for that. I remember we had some of this
Why don't
discussion.
you have a look at it?
When Parks and Rec wanted an
Agreed.
ad hoc.
Yeah,
I think
and we
we
told them
looked
they
at some of
already
that where they
had-
had the ability to bring
Right.
people in
Yeah.
for the purposes
For
of
the one-time thing.
information
Yeah,
and doing
I
some
think-
help. So I'll look at that a little closer.
I think the subcommittee you can do
Make a
yourself.
note here.
I think that's really all they want, is they just want to make sure that if they reach out to a couple citizens, it's okay.
Okay, if I remember the way it was, I think, if I remember the way we had it, is that the committee can have a subcommittee and can deal with the hiring of
Look at that.
if I remember, that's the way it reads, but I could be wrong.
No, it's great, and I'm really excited. Like I said, we got Les Ferber coming out. Alex got a hold of him. He's going to come out and golf with the board members, and they're excited about that. And so it's good. We got
Okay.
the first food order in today, so that's good out there.
As to the other reports, the peace officer report, did I see it?
Yep, it's there.
Okay, yeah, okay, here it is. So, anything to discuss? No. Okay, the quarterly development report, you can see we have a little bit more movement, and that's not a bad thing. CEO report is to be coming. Correspondence, So MP Cheryl Gallant,
Yeah, that's an interesting.
not so sure what you want to do with that one. Is looking for political support. We in general, thank you, do not support anybody or anything. So I think our MP is quite well aware. What exactly do you want us to do with this?
Well, I don't really, I'm not intimate with the bill.
Personally, I am not really knowledgeable of it either. I'm wondering if maybe our own MP could give us some information as to what they're looking for in terms of support. Well, at this time, personally, when he wants support, he let us know. Right now, we haven't received his ask, so I don't really know what to do with it. Maybe it's for information.
I don't know, I've got a comment.
What's your comment?
I'm kind of reading
Councillor?
between the lines. When she says unelected technocrats, I look at environmentalists who are involved in committees, and they're the ones that are pushing for non-compliance fines. There's a push out there, and we're seeing it in British Columbia, we're seeing it in Alberta, we're seeing it in Saskatchewan. All these various things that are coming forward, they are trying to handcuff people. We saw it in our own province with our environmental minister, how they shut down the our local community pasture. These are the things that are going on. And I appreciate this MP for her concern.
All
I
right.
don't want to see that happening, and it is. It's a rampant thing, and when she points out those
Okay.
technocrats, that's who they are.
Okay, would you like me to ask a question
Yes.
at Mayors and Reeve?
I would absolutely appreciate
Okay,
if you would do
all right,
that.
I will do that then.
Because we have enough legislation that's in our province that happened over the past 4 years, that happened because of environmental issues. That we had a very much an environmentalist who was the minister, and she
Okay.
was, previous to that, she was in there, she was a pushing, driving force with the environmentalists, and I don't want to ever see that happen in our province
Okay,
again.
all right, so I will ask that question, try to see what the
Appreciate
position of the Mayors and Reeves. All right, Maurice Fritz soliciting business.
Keep it in your drawer.
For your information, Town of Fort MacLeod, copy of letter to Alberta Health. I received that letter, passed it on to Jeff because it was a continuation of the same story that we had last meeting. I thought maybe you would be interested. Pembina Institute, we have worked with them at times. Invitation to an event.
Is there any interest in anyone to go to that? I can't. I'm actually at another meeting that same day. They invited me to come
Maybe
to it.
you would be interested, Councillor Selk.
South Grove sponsoring it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I intend on going.
okay.
Okay, so we have
That's at Energy
representation.
Forum? Good.
Yeah,
I
so,
was hoping that you would say you would go to that.
so
You
Councillor,
want me to register yet?
Yeah,
Buy the
please.
ticket and everything?
okay. So we need a simple motion to allow Councillor Selk to go and to have his podium.
I'll make the motion that Councillor Selk attend the meeting of the Pembina Institute
Okay,
and pay his per diems.
and
cost.
travel.
Mileage.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor, for
Awesome.
doing that for us. That will complete our regular portion of our meeting. We now need to go in closed session regarding a staffing issue and a solar project quote that we are working on.
I'll make a motion to come out of regular council meeting and go into closed session.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much to the media. Much appreciated.
How long is this conversation going to be?